A meetup group called Discover Greater Sarasota gave Sarasota County History Walks in the near past. This presentation is a representation of one of those walks, the area between MiraMar Court and South Gulfstream, or the South Palm Avenue area. The history given is a shortened version to get the presentation completed within a reasonable time frame. Welcome to the South Palm Historical Area Walk. Our starting and ending point is at the northeast corner of Bayfront Drive and Ringling Boulevard. Currently, there is 3-hour parking on this portion of Gulfstream and the Island Park and Marina parking lot across Bayfront Drive. In this view, we are looking at the entrance to Island Park, which was created in 1963, shortly after Bayfront Drive was paved, linking South Tamiami Trail with North Tamiami Trail in 1960. This portion of Ringling Boulevard was known as Strawberry Avenue until the late 1960s. If the year was 1900, we would be standing in about 3 feet of water since the shore was lapping at Gulfstream. In 1903, the United States and West Indies Railroad and Steamship Company, a subsidiary of the Seaboard Railroad, came into Sarasota. In the same year, they built a railroad pier off Strawberry Avenue. This picture is taken from Gulfstream Avenue, and you will notice the Sarasota Bay shore just feet away. In 1924, John Ringling had invested heavily in the Keys around Sarasota. He wanted investors and visitors to come to the Keys, so he imagined how he could make that happen. Since he knew trains very well, he first came up with a train bridge from Strawberry Avenue to the Keys and the Gulf beaches. Another idea, as you can see in the artist impression, of a car bridge, again starting at Strawberry Avenue, spanning across Bird Key on its way to Lido Key and St. Armand's. The Selbys, Paynes, and others were against this idea because it ruined their view of the bay. Eventually, John Ringling and Owen Burns started the Auto Causeway from Golden Gate Point. If you turn to the right and look to the right of Bayfront Drive and to the left of Gulfstream, you will see a strip of land 60 to 100 feet wide, which represented the first public park in Sarasota. If you turn around, you can see this green space continues southward between Bayshore and Gulfstream. In 1913, the Women's Club headed up a project to create Sarasota's first park. They got the Board of Trade and the mayor, Harry Heigl, to go along with the idea. Instead of buying land, they would make a park by expanding the land into the bay 60 to 100 feet and build a seawall, then filling in the low spots with sand that they dredged from the bay. In the picture, you can see the Strawberry Pier and what looks like tennis courts in the area, which will be the future home of the Church of the Redeemer. The north-south road is Gulfstream Avenue. The first east-west street is William Street, later changed to McAnsh Square. The next street southward, towards the middle of the picture, is Strawberry Avenue. Mayor Harry Heigl, in 1913, declared a public work day to beautify the new park. The picture shows work being done at Main and Gulfstream. Owen Burns is seen holding the reins of his team of mules. The shops were closed and most of Sarasota worked on developing the park. Now let's walk eastward on Ringling Boulevard toward the Church of the Redeemer. If you look across the street, you will see that Gulfstream continues to the south. At least 3 notable figures lived on Gulfstream Avenue near Strawberry Avenue. Felix Pinard and family lived south of Strawberry, facing Gulfstream Avenue. He was the first photographer in the Sarasota and Manatee County area. His wife, Helen, was from an early pioneer family, the Drews, and was a niece of Robert Rickford Roberts of the Venice area. This is the home of Judge Richard P. McDaniel, Gillespie's friend and father-in-law, on Gulfstream Avenue and Strawberry Avenue before the seawall was constructed. McDaniel was the proprietor of the DeSoto Hotel when it became the Belhaven Inn. Calvin Payne lived in the old Winship House between South Palm and Gulfstream Avenue about 1919. If you are familiar with Payne Park, downtown Sarasota, he donated land originally to expand Sarasota's 9-hole golf course, but when that didn't pan out, the area became a park. He also developed Payne Terminal next to the current Centennial Park to remove the fish houses from Sarasota's Bayfront. Mr. Payne was a rich oilman snowbird from Titusville, Pennsylvania, and was very generous to Sarasota. Let's turn northward and walk to the front of the chapel of the Church of the Redeemer. Try to keep up. Getting closer. Notice while you are walking that within the last several years they built a huge addition where their staff parking lot sat at the end of the block. According to The Splendor of His Temple, the Episcopal Church in Sarasota started in 1885 in Mr. and Mrs. A.B. Coachman's home. The prayer group included a Mr. and Mrs. E.W. Morrill, who had been members of the Church of the Redeemer in Biloxi, Mississippi. John Hamilton Gillespie joined this group of Episcopalians just after he arrived in 1886 and later became a lay reader. Small churches in the area could not afford to have a full-time preacher, so circuit rider preachers would contract to preach at a church once or twice each month. Some churches had 2 or more circuit riders per month. By 1893, Gillespie would lay read for the Sarasota group as well as for the established Episcopal Church in Bradentown, Christ Church, originally the Williamsburg Episcopal Church. In 1903, Gillespie built a basic guild hall in his backyard. A guild hall was the first step in becoming an Episcopal church. In 1904, Bishop William Crane Gray authorized an organized mission in Sarasota. In fall of 1904, the first organized meeting for the local Episcopal church met in the dining room of Gillespie's house, Palm Place. His first wife having died in 1904, Gillespie remarried in 1905 to Miss Blanche McDaniel, sold Palm Place, and moved to Morrill Street. The mission building was moved to the northeast corner of Palm and Strawberry Avenues and enlarged. The noise of the railroad going down Strawberry Avenue was very disruptive, and in 1910 the church building was moved again to the corner of Orange Avenue and Morrill Street, very near Gillespie's second home. In the picture, left to right, Dr. Jack Halton, Bishop William Crane Gray, and Hamilton Gillespie. In 1910, J. Hamilton Gillespie sold most of his Sarasota land holdings to Owen Burns, including his house on Morrill Street. In 1948, a new site for the church had been found between Palm Avenue and Gulfstream Avenue, and between McAnsh Square and Strawberry Avenue, and the construction of the new church building started. In March of 1950, the first service was held in the new location. These are church plaques honoring J. Hamilton Gillespie's service to the Episcopal Church. Let's walk north on Gulfstream to the corner of Gulfstream Avenue and McAnsh Square past the new church addition. We're approaching the corner of McAnsh Square and Gulfstream Avenue. McAnsh Square used to be called William Street. Also, you will see a picture of Andrew McAnsh of Chicago, originally from Scotland. Use your imagination and look at the lot across the street without the current building. You can see in this 1907 photo that South Palm Avenue is right in front of the Belhaven Inn. The land south or to the left of the inn, bordering on Gulfstream and the bay, was almost completely barren. In 1922, it was still primarily an empty field. In September of 1922, Andrew McAnsh offered to the city fathers a plan to build a $1 million hotel, the Tamiami Inn. The only catch was that the city investors had to buy $100,000 of mortgage bonds. In preparation of building the hotel, McAnsh and his investors purchased the land. When the local investors did not come through, he developed McAnsh Park in the same area to support his other projects. McAnsh allowed the general public to use the park for free 3 days out of the week. After the downturn of the real estate boom, the hotel saw less visitors, and the first thing to go was McAnsh Park, which was delegated to an overgrown parking lot. If we look now at what was McAnsh Park, we see a large condominium called the Dolphin Towers, which was built in 1973. On June 24, 2010, it was discovered that the fourth floor slab had shifted, causing extensive damage. A week later, all the residents were given 24 hours to pack and evacuate. The building was too old to place liability on the builder, and the insurance company rejected the damage claim. The city inspectors reported the fourth floor slab was in risk of collapse, and the entire building could be toppled by a strong wind. Damage estimate was $18 million. Also, in order to prevent bankruptcy, all condo owners had to continue paying the association assessments of about $550 per month and be ready for a special assessment of close to $100,000 per unit. The association went into mediation with the insurance company and eventually received a just okay settlement. Major repair work started in May 2014, and during the summer of 2015, residents were allowed back in after 5 years. Let's walk up to the corner of South Palm Avenue and McAnsh Square. Almost there. As we get closer to Palm Avenue, we start seeing what once was called the MiraMar Apartments. We will turn left and walk on the sidewalk while observing the remnants of the 1922 buildings. This picture shows J. Hamilton Gillespie's home, Park Place, located between Palm and Pineapple just south of the DeSoto Hotel. In late 1886, a young architect apprentice, Alex Browning, drew the plans and his father, John Browning, and Charles Jones built the house. J. Hamilton Gillespie was the manager of the FMIC, or Florida Mortgage and Investment Company, his father's company. He was too late to convince the Scottish colony to stay in Sarasota, but he was there to make a go at developing Sarasota and hopefully to make money for the company. J. Hamilton Gillespie and his first wife, Mary MacIver Gillespie, lived in this home. About 1903, Mary went back to Scotland and lived with her sister until her death in November 1904. J. Hamilton Gillespie remarried in 1905 to Blanche McDaniel, and they sold the house and moved to Morrell Street. The house was left vacant and burned down in 1909. Back to 1922. With the $1 million hotel financing still in doubt, Andrew McAnsh and his investors decided to build a large apartment/store complex along South Palm Avenue in the same area where Gillespie's Palm Place had been. Initially, without any concessions from the city, McAnsh had Carmen Construction create the 60-day wonder, working day and night, and the stores and apartments were ready by January 1923. In December of 1922, the city gave an incentive in the form of a tax break for 10 years. However, when the city investors could not provide the $100,000 for the proposed hotel, McAnsh and investors offered the city a scaled-down hotel behind the MiraMar apartments, but only if the city would concede 10 years' taxes, water, and electricity. He also offered to build a natatorium, or water spa, nearby. Initially, the city balked, but with pressure from the Chamber of Commerce and local citizens, they relented. Let's continue walking along South Palm Avenue and see the full extent of the MiraMar buildings. This picture shows the old entrance into the MiraMar Hotel, as we will see later. Continuing our walk up South Palm. The building at the northern end was built as part of the MiraMar Apartments in 1922. The address in 1923 and 1924 was number 207 MiraMar Apartments. In 1926, the building was listed as the DeMarque Hotel, with the DeMarque Cafe rated as positively the finest cafe in Florida. In 1936, it became the Palm Hotel. At the creation of this presentation in November 2021, only a ghost of the DeMarque Hotel remained. The DeMarque condominiums will replace the DeMarque Hotel and the Ross Cigar Company building. Okay, you have seen the damage. Let's backtrack and walk through what used to be the entrance into the MiraMar Hotel. Please see the Andrew McAnsh presentation to see more on the MiraMar Apartments and Hotel. Again, this used to be the entrance into the MiraMar Hotel. We will work our way through and exit onto MiraMar Court, previously Guava Avenue. Please keep up. If the hotel were still here, we would be in the main lobby. Now careful up the steps to MiraMar Court. MiraMar means sea view. The MiraMar Corporation owned the hotel until Andrew McAnsh's son-in-law, William Foreman, bought the hotel outright in 1938 and operated it until his death in 1949. It was then sold for $115,000, quite a loss from the original $350,000 investment. But at this time, tourists were looking for rooms on the beach, not in town. 8 years later, it was sold again for $250,000 when Charles Levine operated it as a low-income hotel where the occupants volunteered for some of the tasks to run it. Sarasota's Building and Zoning Department in the 1970s condemned the rooms that were not occupied, and as the occupied rooms were exited, they also became condemned. Melvin Weintraub and Louis Conti bought the hotel for $840,000 in 1982 and demolished the hotel. During 1983 and 1984, the MiraMar Apartments were remodeled into the MiraMar Palm Center. They raised Paradise and put up a parking lot. This is what replaced the MiraMar Hotel on MiraMar Court. Turn around and we'll get a better look down MiraMar Court to the corner of McAnsh Square. That's better. We're looking southward along MiraMar Court and looking at a high-rise parking lot on the other side of McAnsh Square. This is where the MiraMar Auditorium was built. The city had decided at the last moment that they desired an auditorium over a natatorium, so McAnsh built the MiraMar Auditorium in the summer of 1923, the same time as the MiraMar Hotel. You can see the railroad tracks leading from Pineapple Avenue to the Strawberry Avenue Railroad Pier. The building held dances, meetings, and other events. Between 1925 and 1928, the top floor hosted a gambling casino with 4 roulette wheels, card tables, and a game called Faro. The general rule was the casino would only allow in visitors to the city, not the citizens themselves. Times were tough, and in 1945, the building housed a plumbing company. By 1954, it was used for storage, and the following year, it was razed. Across MiraMar Court is Sarasota's original Methodist Episcopal Church, now called First United Methodist Church. To save time on our walk, we are viewing the back side of the church, which faces Pineapple Avenue. In 1891, the 12 charter members of the new Methodist Episcopal Church family met at a vacant store on Lower Main Street. The following year, Harry Heigl bought a parcel for $40 at 5 Points and donated it to the new church for its new home. The Methodists held fundraisers and in 1893 put up a barn-like building. In 1897, the first parsonage was purchased, a belfry and steeple were added, and a bell purchased and installed. By 1911, J.H. Lord had bought up 4 of the 5 corners of 5 Points, including the Methodist Church. As part of the deal, he gave the Methodists a parcel nearby on Pineapple. After several delays, the church building was moved to the new site. They never put the steeple back on. With the money they received from J.H. Lord and many more fundraisers, the Methodists built a brick church in 1914 for $10,000. During 1954 and 1955, they built a new building which seated 1,200 and had air conditioning. The first service was in December 1955. Let's start walking toward Lower Main Street. Next to this parking garage and next to the church once stood a 2-story Peninsular Telephone Company building. This is a postcard view that included the Peninsular Telephone Building. Harry Heigl brought the first crude telephone service to Sarasota. In August of 1903, it was replaced by the Peninsular Telephone Service, which was housed in Heigl's shack at 5 Points, with Carrie S. Abbey acting as postmaster and telephone operator. In 1905, the telephone company and a new switchboard was moved into the Gillespie Block building at 5 Points. In 1922, the company moved into their new building at this spot. The telephone service soon became automated. Let's move down to where the Roth Cigar Factory building stood. This picture shows the status of the DeMarque condominiums. The view is from where the Roth Cigar Factory once stood. The Roth brothers, Edward and Michael, began cigar making on Main Street, where they owned a newsstand since 1917. In May of 1919, they opened a larger cigar factory on their Pine Street lot. In July of 1920, they bought a 2-story brick building on Guava Avenue, formerly used as a warehouse for S.H. Highsmith. They converted the building into a cigar factory. In 1924, they remodeled the building using Thomas Reed Martin as the architect and continued the cigar making on the top floor while creating a billiard room and soft drinks at the bottom. They named the building El Toro. We are now heading for the corner of South Main Street and Palm Avenue. We're approaching Main Street. Let's make a left turn onto the sidewalk. This is a postcard view of Lower Main Street in the 1940s. The corner is in sight. Don't fall behind. Moving from the shadow to the light. This is the corner of Palm and Main. The southeast corner of Palm and Main, G.W. Blackburn's hardware buildings. The initial wooden Blackburn building was constructed in 1901 and burned down August of 1909. At that time, it contained the G.W. Blackburn hardware store, a barber shop, and a bakery. The fire started as the baker started his ovens in the morning. Blackburn had no insurance. At the same spot, he built a 3-story concrete block building between 1909 and 1910. The top floor held the Masonic and Woodman's halls. The bottom left picture shows the fountain in the intersection of Palm and Main. The building across Palm Avenue is the Orange Blossom Building, originally built in 1926 as the American National Bank Building, the third skyscraper in Sarasota. The bank folded in 1928, and the Palmer National Bank and Trust used the first floor for a year before moving to Five Points. In 1936, it became the Orange Blossom Hotel, and in 1968 became the Orange Blossom Club/Apartments. In 1994, all floors except for the first became condominiums. The northwest corner of Palm Avenue and Main Street now houses the Cafe Epicure. In 1886, Hamlin Whitaker opened a meat market here. He would slaughter once deer a week, which he sold here and in Bradentown. In the early 1900s, the Bayview House, owned by Jake Chaplin Sr., sat on this corner. Before Chaplin could sell it, in February of 1910, it burned down, threatening other local properties. It is often confused with the Bayview Hotel, which was located on Mango Avenue and burned in 1912. In 1912, Thomas Watrous from British Honduras built a 2-story hotel and leased it to Mrs. Harriet Hart and called it Hart's Commercial. November 1915, Watrous took back the lease because of Mrs. Hart's illness and renamed the hotel the Watrous Commercial. In 1916, a 3rd story was added with 17 additional rooms and renamed the Watrous Hotel. W.F. Prentice managed the Watrous from 1917 to 1920 when P.A. Cayley from Ohio bought the hotel. In 1948, it was renamed the Colonial Hotel and razed in 1962 as part of the Sarasota redevelopment plan. Now walking toward Gulfstream Avenue. Getting closer, we're approaching Gulfstream Avenue. Let's look across the street to where the DeSoto Hotel / Belhaven Inn stood. The DeSoto Hotel was built during 1886 and 1887. The construction was overseen by John Hamilton Gillespie. Alfred and Annie Jones were the first proprietors of the hotel. At that time, hotels were only open during the peak season and remained mostly closed for the rest of the year. During the summer of 1898, in August, when the hotel was closed for normal business, J. Hamilton Gillespie and wife had just left the empty building when a lightning bolt demolished the observatory. The strike and the rain storm did considerable damage. In 1902, the new proprietor, R.P. McDaniel, renamed the DeSoto Hotel the Belhaven Inn, and by 1904 a new wing was added. After many different owners and proprietors, the DeSoto Hotel / Belhaven Inn was raised to make room for the American National Bank building in 1926. A.E. Willard joined with Tallahassee investors to start the Florida Fish Oil and Fertilizing Company in 1882. He built a two-story fish oil factory at what is now Gulfstream and Maine, and a small wharf next to it. It produced 10 barrels of fish oil per day. By 1885, the FMIC, Florida Mortgage and Investment Company, owned the property and turned the building into the company store for the arriving Scottish settlers. In 1890s, George A. Kaysen bought the store and leased the FMIC dock. He moved the post office into the back of his store with Carrie S. Abbey, the postmaster. Harry Heigl bought the dock and the Kaysen store in the early 1900s. Picture in the top right shows the DeSoto Hotel and the company store. This stretch between Gulfstream and Bayfront on Main Street was where the waves in Sarasota Bay used to wash up to. The FMIC wharf was built here, leased by George A. Kaysen, bought and improved by Harry Heigl. Heigl had the steamboats from Tampa dock here and built a citrus packing plant at the end of the wharf. The Hover brothers bought the wharf and a corner lot in February of 1911 and constructed the Hover Arcade in 1913, which fronted the wharf. One wing was designed for a moving picture house, the other housed Dave Broadway's restaurant and ice cream parlor. In 1917, the city of Sarasota bought the arcade and pier for $40,000 to house City Hall and offices. In 1921, Sarasota County offices moved into the arcade. With the new City Hall building in 1967, the old arcade was not needed and was razed. The pictures show the building of Bayfront Drive from 1957 to 1960 and MiraMar and Island Park from 1963 to 1965. Dredging was scheduled to start in April of 1957, but property owners filed a lawsuit claiming their riparian rights had been violated. The courts ruled against the landowners, but in August 1959, the city had to pay $10,000 to the property owners and had to rebuild Gulfstream Avenue. The new 26-foot street with sidewalks marked the end of Gulfstream's famous brick paver street. Dredging was completed in June 1958. In September 1959, the City Commission approved a $410,000 marina with an ultimate capacity for 335 boats, with construction beginning at the present pier and adding 800 feet and continuing southward for another 1,500 feet. The parking lot could accommodate 434 cars. It was not until November 1963 that firm plans and costs were presented to the City Commission by MiraMar, a new organization in town. Financial backing came from Gulf Oil Company, which agreed to contribute $170,000 of the $300,000 proposed cost. All the buildings would eventually be city-owned, and the city would retain ownership of the land. Within a short period, construction began and was completed in 1965. MiraMar was sold to Jack Graham and Jack Anderson, and the name was changed to Marina Jack. The complex had 110 boat slips and could berth vessels up to 65 feet long. Jack Graham died in 2002. Bob Soren purchased the company from the Jack Graham Trust. In the late 1980s, Jack Graham, Inc. was deemed exempt from property taxes. A lease dating back to the 1960s that said the company's operation of the Bayfront was a public good for the city. A 2009 lease with the city had the company pay 3% of what it grossed every year, which was called the Sweetheart Deal. Bob Soren had requested extensions to the lease of Marina Jack and O'Leary's. No public bidding ever happened in the process. A 2012 court ruling had Jack Graham Inc. pay 50% of its county land taxes which it had not been doing for Marina Jack. It had been paying taxes on O'Leary's. To the right of where the arcade was is an area of Sarasota history tokens. Scott's Landing plaque to commemorate the Scottish pioneers who landed near this area in December of 1885. A Glasgow, Scotland sandstone pillar and plaque signifying a bond between Sarasota and Glasgow. Just down the path are two more commemorations. A concrete tile commemorating the plat of Sarasota community filed in Bradentown on July 27, 1886, and the town incorporation of October 20th, 1902. A concrete tile honoring when the city bought the Hover Arcade in 1917. Let's make our way across Main Street. We're almost done. You can have your water break in a few minutes. We are taking the path to the War Memorial. We made it to the War Memorial, the Doughboy statue, and the commemoration plaque. The plaque talks about the creation of the memorial at 5 Points and the moving of it to Hamel Park. In 1954, the state's Roads Department declared the memorial at 5 Points a traffic hazard, and it was moved to Hamel Park. The doughboy atop the memorial was added in 1998. Time to walk back to Gulfstream Avenue heading south. This is about where Hugh Browning had a small cottage. The Brownings came to Sarasota with the Scottish colony in December of 1885. They moved away in 1887 but gradually came back to Sarasota. It's a short shaded walk back to the corner of Ringling and Bayfront. Well, almost all shaded. Okay, we can see the Ringling sign. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and please stop complaining about your blisters.